There's a kind of tired that sleep does not fix. You wake up, and before your eyes fully open, you already feel behind. Your body is heavy, your thoughts slow. As if someone turned down the voltage in your brain overnight, you move through the morning on autopilot. Coffee becomes a ritual, not for pleasure, but for survival. Chronic fatigue often begins with inside each muscle cell, mitochondria, tiny structures, responsible for producing energy. When they falter, the entire system dims, leaving even simple tasks feeling. Blood sugar instability is one of the most common hidden drains. When you consume refined carbohydrates or sugary drinks, glucose spikes and crashes. Your brain senses this drop immediately. You feel foggy, irritable, desperate for more stimulation. Sleep is another silent architect of exhaustion. Deep sleep stages regulate tissue repair, immune function, and growth hormone release. Chronic stress elevates cortisol, making restorative sleep shallow and interrupted. You may lie still for 8 hours and wake up biologically Fatigue doesn't just affect energy, it rewires your brain. Dopamine and serotonin decline, leaving mood flat and motivation low. The hippocampus struggles to form new memories, and your prefrontal cortex loses sharpness, making even small decisions feel heavy. Every thought drags, focus slips, and the mental fog makes life feel like walking through a haze. This is biology, not weakness. Your hormonal system falls into subtle chaos. Cortisol, insulin, thyroid, and adrenal signals misalign. Morning should energize you. Evening should calm you, but chronic stress and poor lifestyle distort the rhythm. Energy spikes, then crashes. You feel wired, yet exhausted, alert, yet depleted. Your body is technically awake, but the machinery of vitality is faltering. Your gut and digestion begin to mirror. Nutrient absorption falters as the microbiome. Meals that should fuel you leave lethargic and craving sugar or inflammation spreads quietly, slowing recovery. Even when you rest, your body is signaling that sleep alone cannot restore balance. Modern fixes caffeine, sugar, screens mask exhaustion temporarily, but deepen the cycle. Sedentary behavior compounds fatigue, reducing mitochondrial efficiency, insulin sensitivity, and blood flow to the brain. Light and circadian misalignment add another layer. The result, a body and mind trapped in quiet depletion. Yet underneath, every system is capable of adaptation, waiting for the right signals: movement, nutrition, rhythm to restore energy, focus, and resilience. And when exhaustion becomes your identity, something subtle shifts inside you. You stop expecting vitality. You lower your standards for how it feels to be alive. You begin negotiating with your own potential. But the body was not designed for perpetual depletion. At the cellular level, energy production depends on more than calories. It requires micronutrients, magnesium to stabilize ATP, B vitamins to drive the Krebs cycle, CoQ10 to shuttle electrons through the mitochondrial membrane, iron to carry oxygen, iodine and selenium to support thyroid hormone synthesis. Even mild deficiencies can reduce efficiency. Not enough to collapse you, but enough to dull the flame. Magnesium alone participates in over 300 enzymatic reactions. Yet chronic stress increases magnesium excretion through urine. Processed diets often provide less than optimal levels. The result can be muscle fatigue, poor sleep, headaches, and that unshakable sense of physical drain. Thyroid function is another quiet regulator. Thyroid hormones act like metabolic messengers, entering cells and influencing how quickly mitochondria generate energy. When thyroid output is insufficient, even slightly metabolism slows. You may feel cold more often. Your skin may become dry. Your heart rate may lower, and energy fades into a persistent haze. Iron deficiency deserves particular attention. Iron forms the core of hemoglobin, the molecule that binds oxygen in red blood cells. Without adequate iron, oxygen delivery declines. Mitochondria cannot fully perform oxidative phosphorylation. Even if you breathe deeply, even if your lungs are healthy, your tissues receive less usable oxygen. The fatigue from iron deficiency is not dramatic at first. It is quiet, creeping, cumulative. But not all fatigue is purely physical. Your brain runs on prediction and efficiency. When life becomes an endless stream of notifications, obligations, decisions, and digital noise, cognitive load skyrockets. Every micro-decision consumes glucose and neurotransmitter resources. Multitasking fractures attention. Constant context switching increases mental fatigue. You may sit still all day and still feel exhausted. Because your prefrontal cortex has been sprinting, emotional stress compounds this further. Suppressed emotions require energy to contain. Unresolved tension keeps the amygdala vigilant. Hypervigilance consumes resources. Even in safe environments, your body behaves as if threat is near. Breathing patterns shift under stress. Shallow breathing reduces carbon dioxide tolerance. This alters oxygen delivery dynamics in tissues through the Bohr effect. Ironically, breathing faster can reduce effective oxygen release at the cellular level. Chronic overbreathing can contribute to dizziness, fatigue, and anxiety. The system becomes layered with inefficiencies. Yet the body remains adaptive. Mitochondria can increase in number with training. Insulin sensitivity can improve with dietary changes. Circadian rhythms can realign with consistent light exposure and sleep timing. The nervous system can recalibrate through practices that activate the parasympathetic response, slow breathing, meditation, safe social connection. Fatigue is not a verdict. It is feedback. But feedback requires listening. And listening requires slowing down enough to notice what your body has been whispering for years. To reverse constant fatigue, you don't start with intensity. You start with stability. Your biology runs on rhythm, circadian rhythm, hormonal rhythm, feeding and fasting, rhythm. When these rhythms are chaotic, energy fragments. The first intervention is not a supplement or a stimulant. It is consistency. Wake up at the same time every day. Within the first 10 to 20 minutes, expose your eyes to natural light. Morning sunlight hits specialized retinal cells that signal the nucleus, your brain's master clock. Cortisol resets appropriately. Body temperature begins to climb. Alertness increases in a biologically synchronized way. That single habit can shift your entire hormonal cascade. Then stabilize blood sugar. Build meals around protein, fiber, and healthy fats. Protein provides neurotransmitters and stabilizes glucose response. Fiber slows digestion, smoothing glucose release. Fats provide sustained energy. When you reduce rapid spikes and crashes, you reduce the stress chemistry that follows. The afternoon fog begins to thin, not because you forced it away, but because you stopped provoking it. Nutrient sufficiency matters. Iron levels should be evaluated if fatigue persists, especially in menstruating women. Thyroid function should be assessed when symptoms align. Vitamin B12, vitamin D, magnesium, all influence energy pathways. Correction should be guided by qualified healthcare professionals, not guesswork. But beyond physiology, there is something more fundamental. Permission to rest without guilt. Chronic fatigue often exists in people who override their own limits. High performers, caregivers, those who equate productivity with worth. The nervous system cannot heal in an environment of relentless self-pressure. Psychological safety, even self-generated, lowers baseline stress chemistry. Social connection plays a measurable role. Oxytocin, released during safe interactions, dampens stress responses. Loneliness increases inflammatory markers. Humans regulate each other's nervous systems. Energy is not purely biochemical, it is relational. Move your body, but intelligently. Exhaustion does not require punishment. It requires signaling. Even 10 to 20 minutes of brisk walking increases mitochondrial biogenesis through activation of PGC1-alpha, a molecular regulator of energy metabolism. Resistance training improves insulin sensitivity and preserves muscle mass, your largest metabolic organ. Movement tells your body that energy demand is real, and the system adapts upward. Breathe slower. Most adults breathe 14 to 18 times per minute at rest. Consciously slowing to 5 to 6 breaths per minute stimulates the vagus nerve, activating the parasympathetic system. Heart rate variability improves. Cortisol gradually oxygen delivery becomes more efficient. The signal shifts from threat to safety. Sleep becomes sacred. Dark room, cool temperature, no screens, at least an hour before bed. Melatonin is not just a sleep hormone. It is also a mitochondrial antioxidant. When sleep deepens, repair accelerates. Growth hormone pulses. Immune balance
Chronic fatigue often masks as
food,
lifestyle
movement,
overwhelm.
Sleep, nutrients,
Stress
regulation,
innate where the
something
pocket
remarkable
or
happens.
catchers.
The
Chronic
fog doesn't
fatigue
vanish in a
often
dramatic
masks
explosion.
as
It lifts
lifestyle
gradually.
overwhelm.
You wake up one morning
The
and
solution
notice
is
that standing feels easier.
holistic.
Thoughts feel sharper.
Movement,
you no longer
nutrition,
negotiate
lifestyle
with the day
factors
before it
like
begins.
stress and
Your
poor
body
diet
is
can
not
mask
fighting
as
you.
fatigue.
It is
The
supporting
holistic
you. And when your body begins supporting you instead of resisting you, you realize something powerful. Energy was never about forcing more output. It was about removing interference. Vitality is your default design. Inside every cell, Mitochondria respond to demand. When you give them oxygen through movement, they multiply. When you nourish them with micronutrients, they function more efficiently. When you protect them from chronic inflammatory stress, they repair themselves. The body is not fragile, it is adaptive, but adaptation requires the right signals. Consider cold exposure and heat therapy brief. Controlled stress sauna use has been shown to improve cardiovascular function and increase heat shock proteins, which assists in cellular repair. Short cold exposure can activate norepinephrine and improve mitochondrial density. These are not extremes meant to punish the body. They are signals that enhance resilience when applied intelligently and safely. Even posture influences energy. Slouched posture compresses the diaphragm, limiting breath depth. It subtly reinforces a state of passivity in the nervous system. Standing upright improves lung expansion, circulation, and even mood through bidirectional brain-body feedback loops. Hydration plays a quieter role. Even mild dehydration reduces blood volume, decreasing oxygen and nutrient delivery. Cognitive performance drops. Fatigue. What feels like burnout can sometimes be a basic physiological deficit, repeated daily. Then there is purpose. Dopamine is not simply the pleasure chemical. It is the molecule of pursuit. When you move toward meaningful goals, dopamine rises in anticipation, not just achievement. Chronic fatigue often blunts this system, but as inflammation lowers, sleep improves, and blood sugar dopamine signaling strengthens. Motivation returns, not as manic urgency, but as steady drive. Sunlight, movement, nutrient density, rest, connection, challenge, these are ancient inputs. Your biology recognizes them immediately. Modern fatigue is often the consequence of living in environments misaligned with evolutionary design. Artificial light at midnight, hyperpalatable processed foods, constant digital stimulation, social isolation, psychological pressure without physical release. Correct the mismatch, and the system This does not mean ignoring serious medical conditions. Persistent, unexplained fatigue warrants evaluation for anemia, thyroid disorders, sleep apnea, autoimmune conditions, depression, and other underlying causes. Responsible care includes investigation, but even within clinical treatment, foundational biology still matters. Energy is not a mystery. It is chemistry, rhythm, and regulation. When you feel tired all the time, your body is not betraying you. It is communicating. It is asking for alignment. And if you begin to listen, truly listen, you may discover that beneath the exhaustion is not weakness, but a system waiting to be restored. You are not meant to drag yourself through your days. You are built to generate power, and that power has not disappeared. It has been waiting for you to come back into rhythm with the biology that has been carrying you all along.